ago, but Coach, I think you're an FSU guy at heart anyway, if I've got that right. But what's the recruiting trail like? What are the conversations like back then with Bobby Bowden?
Well, the thing with Bobby that was so interesting, and I had a unique perspective because when I went to Florida State, I was like a 20-year-old kid coaching JV football at Lincoln High School. So, they'd have coaching stuff over in the stadium, and they'd have, Tuesday night was a high school coach, and you could go over and sit with the coaches and go and film and everything like that. And it was just funny. Me as a little 20-year-old kid, basically, I was like, question, like, this is sort of what I want to do for my career. What kind of advice? I mean, he was like 50 at the time. So, and he says to me, which has been true to basically the way I coached the whole time through, was, just be true to who you are as a coach and don't try to be something you're not. And a lot of guys get caught up in trying to run this guy's scheme or this guy's thing and this guy's thing. But I used to translate that to my kids is, hey, man, you weren't born in the hood, so don't try to act like you're in the hood. I said, don't be something you're not. It's only going to get you in trouble. You're not ready for that. So those were some of the lessons way back in. But recruiting-wise, it was just a joy just to talk to him. He recruited, of course, when Leon was there, and then Aubrey McFadden and a couple other guys they got or didn't get. And just funny, man, just funny. He always remembered my name. So I don't know. Some of the guys are like he couldn't remember names or he knew where you're from or what your mom's name was. But he couldn't remember. He always remembered my name. He was like, "Oh, you're Kevin Sullivan. You're Coach Sullivan. You're over there. You in Jacksonville. You still in South Florida. That kind of stuff." So just a joy to be around, and it was pretty interesting. The recruitment of Leon was pretty interesting because they got over there. Coach Kynes was recruiting him, and he brought Coach Bowden over to school. And when Coach Bowden comes to school, it's like the president coming to the school.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, hey, Coach Bowden's coming. I got to get security because, they might have come off not a great year. And, the kids don't care. They'll be yelling stuff at them. You guys aren't any good and stuff. So, we get it set up. So they get in there in the little principal's conference room. And I'm going to get the principal, and it's Coach Bowden and Leon. And I go out. I come back in, and it's like two old souls sitting together. Leon's like Coach Bowden is sitting there and Leon's sitting next to him, and they're like their knees are like sort of together. That's how close they're talking to each other. And Leon's laughing and Coach is laughing, and they're talking about growing up or how far he lived from the school and those kind of things. And it was just a really unique situation to watch and be a part of and stuff. So yeah, just crazy. Great life. I mean, Brett, 91. Touched so many people, and he'll live on in so many people.
Yeah, absolutely. Always good for someone to look up to somebody else. And when you have high school coaches looking up to Bobby Bowden, that's a fantastic way to pass it down. Kevin Sullivan, thanks for the couple minutes, man. We appreciate it. We'll talk soon on our high school coverage, of course, all fall.
All right, buddy. I'll talk to you later. Thanks.
Appreciate it. That is Kevin Sullivan, who obviously coached Leon Washington and ran into Bobby Bowden many a times on the recruiting trail. This is going to be fun. We've tried to really celebrate the life of Bobby Bowden in a lot of different ways. Some of the names. The Greg Joneses, Leon Washingtons. Did you know this? That Dr. Joseph Joyner, former superintendent of schools down in St. Johns County, president at Flagler, played on that initial team for Bobby Bowden in 1976. I believe Dr. Joyner was a senior. I hope I have all my stories right. I've spoken to so many people over the last couple of days. Dr. Joyner, thanks for taking a few minutes. Do I have it right?
It's my pleasure, Brent. Thanks for having me. And, yes, I was a senior, Coach Bowden's first year, 1976.
Wow. So at the start of it, what does this news mean to you today at the age of 91, Bobby Bowden passing away? And obviously we saw this coming the last few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a surprise. And obviously there's a real sadness when I found out early this morning. But, he was well prepared to take the next step. And so really it's just I have more of a sense of just gratitude for having the opportunity to be with him, even though it was just 1 year. He stayed in touch with me while I was superintendent. He actually spoke at our Flagler athletic banquet couple of years ago. I think it was one of the last events he spoke at, and it's kind of an amazing story how we got him to Flagler. But he always stayed in touch. Always wrote me letters when I was having difficult times, and remembered me. And guys, it's 45 years ago. It's just amazing. So my feeling is one of just really gratitude for having the blessing of being able to be around him for a year, and then to be able to know him all throughout my career.
You would have to be one heck of a soothsayer to be able to know what he would accomplish back in 1976 when he arrived in Tallahassee at Florida State.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be a tough one to predict. All the accolades, the national championships, the over 400 wins, the everything that Bobby Bowden left behind. But did you notice something special about it? Do you remember that?
It is different right away. I was listening to ESPN earlier today, and somebody said it was built over time. And it really wasn't. I mean, right away. I mean, we only won 5 games the first year, but we were only out of a couple of games. We lost close to Clemson, lost to Florida on the last play. Went out to Oklahoma, who was in the top 5 that year, and I think we were leading at halftime before they caught up to us. And so we were right away. You could see a difference. He expected to win. He was going to find a way. Doing different things, obviously creative offensively, but he was just a great coach, and he expected to win. And I've heard people say he was soft on his players. I can assure you that wasn't true. I heard, he was a disciplinarian, and he expected you to do what you were told. And right off the bat, you could tell there was more discipline on the team. And he expected to win, and he loathed kicking somebody off because when, especially the kids I played with, there weren't a lot of options for someone if you lost your scholarship and didn't have a chance to go to college. So he really didn't want to, but he was a tough coach, tough on the practice field. He actually personally coached the punting team, which I was on. And so I got to be personally coached by him as a position coach on the punt team. And I think we led the nation in net punting that very first year. So did a lot of good things right away. And you could tell there's going to be a difference. And then of course, after that, he's just such a recruiting monster. Started bringing in good players, better players, and then people like myself, and then the rest is history.
Dr. Joseph Joyner with us here on Action Sports Jax on ESPN 690. Played on that initial Bobby Bowden team in 1976, which I think is so cool. You have had such a successful life, Dr. Joyner, superintendent of schools, president at Flagler. I mean, do you think some of the things, even in that short window, that you kind of look back on, lean back on, or maybe even it was conversations after you were done playing for Coach Bowden in Florida State?
Without a doubt. I patterned my leadership after his. And he wrote a good book on leadership and management that is probably not widely known, but it was a book that I used. He wrote with his son Steve that really talked about leadership and leadership principles. And I sort of adopted that philosophy. The biggest thing with him was integrity, and what you saw is what you got. And there was not even a hint of anything, that wasn't just straight by the book, and his integrity and honesty. And it was just the type of man that I wanted. And we were desperate. My 4 years we went 0-11, 1-10, 3-8. And then he came, and we were desperate for discipline. We were desperate for somebody who wanted to win. And so when I left, I coached for about 5 years.
Broadcasting live from the
And then after I coached for about 5 years, I kind of fell in love with education administration. And then he stayed in touch and encouraged me in my role. And, when I retired from the school district, he did a wonderful video tribute that I'll remember the rest of my life. But I think the biggest thing, Brent, is he said, both at Flagler, he spoke at our athletic banquet, and it seems like just a simple thing, but he was proud of me as a man and proud of what I'd become as a man. And that meant so much to me. It chokes me up thinking about it, to make someone like that proud of you is all I cared about. Him and my dad, so and my wife. That's all I cared about, and he was just very special.
Well, very profound, and we appreciate you sharing that with us, Dr. Joseph Joyner. Thanks so much for taking a few minutes. I remember being back at Flagler a couple years ago with our show and hearing some of these stories, so thanks for sharing it once again, and best to you and your family.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
You bet. That's Dr. Joyner, played on that 1976 team for Coach Bowden. That was year number 1. Well, now as we continue to go really all over the country and talk about Bobby Bowden and celebrate the life and the man, Bobby Bowden, we've had Gene Deckerhoff, Verlin Dormady here locally, Greg Jones, Leon Washington, James Coleman, Kevin Sullivan, Dr. Joyner. We will have more guests, and, well, the guest right now joining us, you know his name, the legendary Charlie Ward from Florida State, 1993 Heisman Trophy winner, of course, and forever linked with Bobby Bowden, national champions, and Florida State football. Charlie, so grateful for your time, and sorry to hear about the loss of Bobby Bowden today.
Well, we're all mourning his loss. However, he's left a great legacy behind with all the men that you probably interviewed and all the guys that he's been able to coach over the years, which he coached a long time. And then not only did he coach, but all the people that were before him whenever he spoke at FCA banquets and all the other opportunities he had to speak. And so, he's made a great impact on a lot of people. And 91 years old, he's been around. He used his platform to glorify God in any way he could. And so, if we ever want to live a life, we definitely like to live the life that he had. Being here for that long and being able to see a whole lot and also make an impact.
Charlie Ward with us here on ESPN 690. There's so many, I guess, younger and new Florida State fans. They know your name, of course. How did he get you to Florida State? Do you remember those days, those conversations, what it was like in the early years before you started up producing all those numbers and, of course, the great 93 season?
Well, actually, it was Coach Wayne McDuffie who had to sell him on me coming to Florida State to be a quarterback. And I'm grateful that he, allowed me to have that opportunity to come and play quarterback at Florida State. And, I'm right here locally, pretty much local, from Thomasville. And we grew up watching Coach Bowden, his show each and every Sunday after the football game. So I kind of knew of him, and he was always a legend. And when it came time for me to be recruited and they were in the mix, it was like every other little kid that saw, someone that was famous come to the school or come watch him play. You're excited, and it was an honor for him to be there. But, when it was all said and done, have an opportunity for him to, allow me to come and play at Florida State. Also, being able to ask about playing two sports and, with him allowing Brad Johnson to play basketball and football, which I wanted to do. Those were basically the conversations that we had, when the time the recruiting process came through. And that was really one of the main reasons why I chose to go to Florida State, because it allowed Brad Johnson to play multiple sports. And so it was, as a Christian, I came from a Christian household, and all those things played a big part.
Charlie Ward with us here on ESPN 690, celebrating the legendary life, the legendary man, Bobby Bowden. You bring up the two sports, and obviously you picked the NBA over the NFL. Was he a part of those discussions and conversations? Did he help you through that difficult time of what to do with your future?
He was a part of it. Discussions were made. Two of those guys, who were a part of discussions have passed on. Eggman Williamson was the basketball liaison, and Coach Bowden, kind of allowed me to, talk to him about his thoughts and where I was draft possibilities and those types of things. But he was always, he would give us two cents on something. But of course, we had to make our own decisions. And I was grateful that I could go to him and get some wise counsel.
1993 was a long time ago. How was your relationship over the last 25 years or so as a grown man and as sports was ending and life, just life conversations with Bobby Bowden over the last 25 years or so?
Well, when we went into the College Football Hall of Fame together, that was really one of the first times after I graduated that I got a chance to sit down and just talk to him about, coaching in some form of fashion. And, I asked him about coaching, what it was going to take to be a great coach. And he gave his 2 cents on that about being honest and fair. Those are the two things that he gave me. And since that time, we've had many opportunities to be together, whether it was at his home, whether we were honoring him with the medal here in state of Florida, or going on an FCA trip, and so, or doing appearances together. So all those things, you sit back and you talk, and he's just a man of great wisdom, and so you learned a lot from him.
Charlie Ward with us on ESPN 690, celebrating Bobby Bowden. I'll ask you this to finish, and we appreciate your time, Charlie. I don't know, whether it's 30 years down the road, whatever the time frame is, you're sitting on the porch in a rocking chair thinking back to all these great days, grandkids around or kids around, and you say Bobby Bowden. What's the snapshot image for you? What kind of pops in your mind first?
Man of God. That's definitely the thing that I can say he was. From the time I know I've met him until now. He's a great man of God. Of course, he's not perfect, just like none of us are. But, his humility, his willingness to share his faith with others. I always think about the time when he took us to, while we were in school, he took us to church twice every summer, every preseason. And that sticks out to me even today, because that's definitely frowned upon at a state university. But it wasn't that he didn't care. He just knew that was going to be the right thing to be able to help our athletes, in their decision making, their faith. And so he was very intentional in all the things that he did. And so I'm grateful that he was.
Charlie Ward, we appreciate you taking the time today. Thanks for helping us celebrate Bobby Bowden. I know it's going to be an emotional week, but also one when we think of Bobby Bowden, we do with a smile. Appreciate your time. Be well.
All right. Thank you for having me.
That's Charlie Ward, 1993 Heisman Trophy winner, of course, from one Charlie to the next Charlie. And I spoke with this Charlie a bit yesterday to get a bit more background information. And there are some fantastic stories, so much so that Charlie Barnes wrote some books about Florida State football and Bobby Bowden, and one entitled Dynasty. Seminoles football glory days in the 90s. Used to be the executive director, I think we call him, of the Seminole Booster Club. So many folks in Florida State football land know the name Charlie Barnes. Charlie, thanks for taking a few minutes here with us on Action Sports Jax on ESPN 690. Good to talk to you yesterday. And sorry to have to talk to you again so soon today after the passing of your friend Bobby Bowden.
Yes. Sorry it's under these circumstances, but what a wonderful man, and what a wonderful tribute to him that they have planned.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they're going to do that later in the week, of course, in Tallahassee. We'll share some more of that information, but the plans have been announced, and it will be a multi-day celebration for Bobby Bowden. We were talking yesterday, Charlie, about those road trips and the time that you took that spring tour, and Bobby Bowden did that kind of one-of-a-kind type of thing. I mean, it just showed you, one, his energy, his affinity for the state of Florida, and also his ability to recruit and sell the brand of Florida State.
Yes, he loved the fans, and the fans responded to him, and he drew on that. It was like the breath of oxygen. And so we would go from town to town and especially Jacksonville. We had probably our signature Seminole Booster Club over there. And we traveled for 6 weeks or 2 months every year, going every night, 4 or 5 nights a week. And he became the personality to know in the state of Florida. And I think our relatively young university at the time, the fans took on his personality. And that was why they were so closely connected to him, and why he was so closely connected to them emotionally.
Charlie Barnes with us here on Action Sports Jax on ESPN 690. You were with Bobby Bowden since 1978. A lot of conversations. I mentioned the books that you wrote about the Florida State glory days. We were talking about this. I mean, that run, the magical years of FSU football.
Yeah.
I mean, was Bobby Bowden the most gleeful during that time? I mean, I can't imagine a man in a better mood with all those W's, some national titles, and that amount of success.
Yeah, I'd say gleeful is a really good word. Yes, he was a man that really appreciated good times, good things, winning. Between that magical period from 87 through 2000, 2001, he was a very happy guy. We won 10 games a year at least, a couple of national titles. Numerous Heisman Trophy winners, other trophy winners, and wherever he went, people were jumping up and down in the aisles and waving signs and shouting hallelujah and saying, "We love you, Bobby." We'd go to Jacksonville, and Susie Brown, who was a major donor to the university, would cut his hair every time he'd go to Jacksonville. She would take him aside to her shop and she'd cut his hair. I mean, that was the kind of thing that would go on with the booster clubs. We don't really have that now with 24-hour sports programming and you can watch kickboxing from the Philippines at 4 o'clock in the morning. At that time, the only outlets were radio and television and the games, but there was more of a culture. There was more of a personal culture among the fans, and they're more of a personal attachment to the coach, I think.
Yeah, I think that was a great explanation, too. And we were talking about this yesterday. I mean, not only the 24-hour news cycle, but now the NFL is so enormous. And it's not like college football isn't. College football is still big, but the NFL is bigger than anything. It's bigger than life. In our culture, it's just become that way. So that 87 to 2000 run in there, I mean, you were describing it almost like a parade when you'd go visit boosters and fans. And, I mean, every time Bobby Bowden showed up, it was like a parade.
It was a parade. Yeah, they'd go pick him up at the airport on Monday morning. I'd put him on a plane. He'd fly into Jacksonville Monday morning, and Ray Barbie or somebody would pick him up at the airport, take him 4 or 5 cars in a row, would take him to the golf course, and everybody would shout hallelujah, and they'd line up and play golf, and then there'd be a big luncheon, and then he'd go home and he'd go back and take a nap. And then we'd have the big show that night. It was a parade. It was a circus every night, and everybody loved it. And that was their entertainment. This was pre-cell phone. I remember having to go up and down I-75, stopping at hotels to find a phone that I could use a phone card on just to find out what my emails were. It was a different day, a different time, different atmosphere. College football was maybe a little more personal, maybe a little more. Help me here with a word. It's not as business-like as it is today, especially with the new changes.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess every day was a pep rally. It felt like. Charlie Barnes with us here on ESPN 690. We celebrate the life and the man of Bobby Bowden. And, I said this morning, Charlie, when I heard the news early this morning, and we were heading down to the Jaguar Stadium. By the way, that was the last football game that Bobby Bowden coached, and he won the 2009 Taxslayer Gator Bowl. Had so many great memories here in Jacksonville, whether it's recruiting, visiting fans, or winning football games here in the city of Jacksonville. But I was going down there for the Jaguars practice and scrimmage, and I said, what a glorious Sunday morning Bobby Bowden would think this is. It's a Sunday morning, which usually means church, and we're playing some football on Sunday as well. So 2 things he dearly loved. You told the story to me yesterday that, he basically would craft that spring tour schedule, whether Monday through Saturday, so he could fly back to Tallahassee and attend church.
Yeah, he'd fly back Saturday night late, wouldn't get in till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. And then he would get up in the morning and drive to Lord knows where, Valdosta, Bainbridge, wherever it was that they had asked him to come and speak. And he felt that that was something that he should do. And then he'd go back home and do whatever work he had to do, and then we'd get back on the road on Monday. He had a tremendous well of energy. He was highly motivated, highly energetic, but he could take a nap now. When he went down like a log in the forest. I mean, he would go straight down to the ground. And he'd sleep for a couple of hours, then he'd be ready to go again.
Yeah, it's a good life when you can put your head on the pillow every night, right? Absolutely. Well, Charlie Barnes, we appreciate it. And once again, check out several books Charlie Barnes has written about Florida State football. If you want to hear more of the stories from Charlie as he drove around from stop to stop and spent those late nights with Coach Bobby Bowden, check out Dynasty. Remembering those good old days of the glory 90s. We appreciate it, Charlie. Very nice to talk to you yesterday and today. Sorry for the loss of a very good friend, but we kind of say that with a smile when we say it about Bobby Bowden, such a great man.
Yeah, I'm sure he's smiling somewhere right now.
Absolutely. Thank you, Charlie. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Bye-bye.
All right. More of the celebration of Bobby Bowden continues. We're going to take you about another half hour, I believe. We're going to get out at 3:45 to get to the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp. They have a doubleheader today, starting at 4:05 right down there at Bragan Field, 121 Financial, the baseball grounds. Go check out a ball game tonight if you want, but you can hear it on ESPN 690. Been with you since 2 o'clock, celebrating the life of Bobby Bowden. If you're just catching in this morning at 5:08, Bobby Bowden passed away at the age of 91. Many folks close to him, many folks in the football world saw this coming the last few weeks when we found out he had a terminal illness, and that was announced and a statement was made by him and the family. He said he was at peace. A day later, his son said it was pancreatic cancer, and this morning, Bobby Bowden died at the age of 91 early this morning. We've had Gene Deckerhoff on, Verlin Dormady, Greg Jones, Leon Washington, James Coleman, Kevin Sullivan, Dr. Joseph Joyner, who played on that initial team in 1976. Charlie Ward just joined us moments ago. Charlie Barnes, who spent many a time with Bobby Bowden since 1978, also joined us moments ago. And we're bringing in folks from all different walks of life that may have run into Bobby Bowden over the years. And my buddy Martin Buckley joins us right now from Palm Beach Autographs. And he has probably many a story of the recent years with Bobby Bowden. Spent a lot of time at memorabilia signings with Coach Bowden. Martin, how you doing, man?
Hey, what's up, Brent? How you doing, man? This is good of you to do this and remember Bobby today, man.
Yeah, well, you have spent recently time with Bobby Bowden. I can only imagine what those moments are like. I think of you a lot. I know you do signings with all sorts of players and figures in sports, but Bobby Bowden has to be one of your favorite because, well, anybody you talk to has met Bobby Bowden. He's one of their favorites.
You know, he's one of the guys. I've been doing this with Palm Beach. We're coming up, we've had 20 years that we've done this. We've worked a lot with really, really cool people, really, really nice people, but Bobby is right at the top of the list. The guy was just always incredibly kind. Ann and Bobby would invite us to their house when we would do the autograph signings. We would set it up in his office, in their dining room, and they were just as kind and lovely a human being as you would ever meet. They're kind of like everybody's grandparents in a lot of ways. And just so welcoming, and he was so funny, and he lived a really amazing life. And I'll always remember all the events and all the autograph signings and all of his amazing stories along the way.
How, over the years, how well received was a Bobby Bowden autograph or a Bobby Bowden signing on a bit of memorabilia? How did that sell? How did that do?
There's a reason we would do Bobby probably about twice a year, whether it was a public signing that we were doing or a public event, and then we would have him sign several hundred items for us, or if we were driving over to Tallahassee just to set everything up at his house to do a signing. He's one of our, still to this day, in our Jacksonville location, he's one of the best sellers. Everybody that comes in that's, looking for something Florida State, he's, along with obviously a guy like Charlie Ward, Bobby Bowden is a guy that whether you're old or young, there's so much history around him that he's still, to this day, one of our favorite sellers and best sellers.
You sound like you're on dad duty a little bit here. My guess is you go visit Bobby Bowden, maybe everybody's grandfather, it feels like. He probably had some dad lessons for you.
He did. He absolutely did. He would always ask me about my kids, which always meant a lot to me. That is Walker in the background there, chatting it up for us. But he always spoke so lovely about all of his kids and all of his grandkids and granddaughters and great-granddaughters. I mean, it was just amazing how he would, he always had something, kind to share about them, whether it was their sports or what they were doing or speaking engagements. He always had a story to tell for sure.
Martin Buckley with us from Palm Beach Autographs. All right, man, you got to tell us the story. You would sometime drop a little gator bait at Bobby Bowden's house. How was that received? And give us the background on that.
Yes. So, just that shows you the kind of guy that Bobby Bowden is, right? Here we are, a bunch of Florida Gators, and he has us over to his house all the time. So I think it was the first time I got to go to his house. I thought it would be funny. I bought a magnet, just a Gators magnet. And when Bobby and Ann weren't looking, I just stuck it on the fridge and left it. And so, I don't know, 6 months later or so, I come back and I said, "Hey, did you find the gift we left you?" And he said, "Oh, what was that?" And I saw the Gator magnet on the fridge. And they had a big laugh because somebody came over to the house and saw it and said, "What is this doing here?" And they had no idea. So then we just started making. Every single time I would go, I would leave a little stuffed animal somewhere or a little cardboard cutout, and that was our sort of thing. So, a couple of months later, it'd be Thanksgiving, and they'd be taking out the stemware, and there would be this little gator, inside there. And in August, I called Coach, and he was doing pretty well, but he just told me, he's like, "Hey, I'm getting older. I don't need to do this anymore, but I want you to do the last autograph signing." And I had a couple of hundred pieces. So when I went to his house, I said, this time instead of me leaving something Florida, I left him something Florida State. And it was this jersey that we had made up that had all of his major accomplishments, stitched onto the bottom. So the last time I went, I left him that jersey and a nice note, and I'll remember him fondly. He was a terrific man.
That's awesome. Great story there, and only Bobby Bowden would let you back in his house after all of that. So that was a year ago. That was the last signing that he did.
Yep, that was it, and he was as witty as ever. The guy was so quick with a joke. Everybody will tell you that. He had some really fantastic ones, if anybody's ever had the chance to see him speak. He was a fantastic joke teller. So when I was visiting with him, he was moving slower. He was walking with a cane, but he was still just as funny and just as witty as ever. It's a sad day, but it's also a celebration of a life well lived, I think.
Absolutely. Martin Buckley from Palm Beach Autographs. Get back to dad duty, but thanks for sharing some of the stories of Bobby Bowden over the years.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for doing this for him. It's a nice way for everybody to remember a truly great man and a heck of a football coach.
You bet. We'll talk soon. That's Martin Buckley from Palm Beach Autographs. Fantastic stuff there. Action Sports Jax Marcel Robinson this afternoon caught up with former Florida State Seminole wide receiver Rod Owens. We have that conversation right now.
Obviously, sad day. Tell me what was, sort of how did you find out about the, unfortunate passing of Coach Bobby Bowden?
Just surfing the web early in the morning, and then I saw that Coach Bowden had passed away, so just checked multiple sources just to kind of confirm it, because fake news is out every now and then. But once it was confirmed, it was devastating initially. But just start reflecting, just things that he's talked about, and it wasn't really about Coach Bowden per se. It was all about his message and how he left an impact on us. And the biggest part was just his religious side, So he used football to reach a lot of players. Of course, me. He used football to reach a lot of men, coaches, players. And the biggest message was just aligning yourself up with God and just making sure you're doing His work through everything that you do, telling people about God. And so once I started reflecting and just remembering those messages, it was more so like, job well done, Coach Bowden. influenced me, impacted me in a big way, and I can only imagine like a lot of coaches, a lot of players impacting them the same way. Of course, you have little stories and anecdote that makes you laugh and just leaves a big impact. Just who he was and what type of guy he was, and I can honestly say like just hearing him talk, whether it was to us directly or to other people, the main message was about his faith, Christian, about giving God the praise, and then how do you maneuver and just be an example in that matter. And a lot of it is just being selfless, showing mercy and showing grace, giving people opportunities that normally wouldn't get opportunities, and just showing that he's there for you. So I just really appreciate that, and just reflecting now, I didn't really know the big impact that he made on me, and even how I speak now. He just made a really big impact on me.
Obviously, we kind of got wind of this, weeks ago. We knew that this was kind of coming at some point, but it doesn't really make it any easier, obviously. You've had time to reflect now, and of course, I'm sure over the past few weeks, but, just take me back to when you were just a young pup coming out of Wilson High School, obviously getting recruited by coaches. Tell me about how that relationship was, and what was your initial impression, when, you met the legendary already Coach Bobby Bowden?
So I was already a fan of Florida State just growing up, just watching the greats coming up. But, of course, the visit when he came to my house, stepped out at the back porch, and it wasn't really about me. It was just how he introduced with my friends and interacted with my friends. And I thought that was cool. And then he just knew how to talk to my parents. He just always said the right thing. It wasn't like a salesman tactic. It was just being genuine, And it was just a great guy. We just had like a authentic conversation. And then that was just one confirmation, and then actually going up there, just everything that he said, it was all in line. Like, no lies, no promises. It's just being authentic. Like, we're going to love you. We're going to coach you hard. We're going to learn about God, of course. And then we'll just let everything fall where it may.
You're one of many former players that have been reaching out, obviously, through social media. I saw you changed your profile picture on social media of you and Coach Bobby Bowden. What does that say for someone like him? Like you said, obviously, because of the way he touched your life, but so many people around him, former players, people that have coached with him, opponents, really, are paying homage to one of the greatest football, coaches we've had.
Yeah, it's all about just giving honor and just praising. Of course, we gave honor while he was here, but also just paying your respects and doing just the little things, just to let him know that like we're here for him as well as his family, and even also like the non-blood relatives, our team, and just everybody he's touched. Like we're here, we're community, we're family, and we're all together. So just wanted to show that.
Give me one good Coach Bowden story of when you were at Florida State.
It was just small stories. Whenever he talked about being tough. He was like, yeah, I was tough. I remember hitting somebody in the face, and he hit me back. And then I quickly learned that I wasn't so tough anymore, So just little small anecdotes. They seem very, very simple, very common sense-like, but it's just so funny because you don't really think about, like, the obvious. And sometimes you need to hear the obvious. Like, don't overthink it. Keep it simple. And he was really good at that,
And last question for you. Obviously, like you said earlier, that this is someone that obviously you cherished, and you'll take these messages with you for the rest of your life. But it's not just you, it's everyone. Like we talked a little bit about just kind of what kind of person he was, but he's the type of coach that, regardless of his football statistics, he's going to be more known for his touch for you and everyone around him, right?
That's correct, man. It's always, everybody looks at not just the name, but like just your work. And whenever you look at his work as a coach, as a player, as a man, so you got to think about coach, husband, father, and just how he just influenced the world, And all I can say again is just job well done. I know when he's in heaven, he's with the Lord, he's going to say job well done. So just echoing it,
Receiver, former FSU receiver Rod Owens catching up with Marcel Robinson earlier this afternoon after the passing of Bobby Bowden at the age of 91, passed away this morning at 5:08 peacefully with family by his side. After a few weeks back, we found out that he had a terminal illness. The legendary life, the legendary man. We continue to celebrate for the next few minutes, and then we'll hand you off to Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp baseball. But we have had really in a strange way, a kind of cool 90 minutes or so, reliving some of the days and the stories and who exactly Bobby Bowden is. And so many folks know him anyway, and so much of it. It's almost cliche to call Bobby Bowden a living legend, a legend of a coach and a legend of a man. But Hey, you know what? Cliches are a thing for a reason. It's true. And Bobby Bowden is exactly that. Mike Norvell talked today solely about Bobby Bowden. He did not address practice. This was after practice, but he talked about the loss of Bobby Bowden. Here's Mike Norvell, the current Florida State head football coach.
Obviously, it's an emotional day with Coach Bowden passing away this morning. Something that we actually started off our morning together as a team. We talked about Coach Bowden and his legacy, the man that he was and the legacy that he left. You think about the impact that he made throughout his life. 91 years old. We talked about it last week, the peace that he was at, even at that stage in his life, because he knows what he accomplished. He knows what he gave, and we know where he's at right now. He was with us today. He's been limited to all the things he could do physically, being a part of this team and being able to come out and to be on the practice field, but there's no doubt that today his spirit was with us.
That's Mike Norvell, Florida State head football coach, and every coach who ever coaches at Florida State lives up now to the legend of Bobby Bowden. We knew that would be the case. There's a statue right outside the stadium for good reason. After all the success and all the years, a couple national titles and many more, the impact that Bobby Bowden left on Tallahassee, Florida State, the football program, the college football world, and so many more. This is what Bobby Bowden told Mike Norvell a couple years ago when he took the job.
I got an opportunity to meet with him. First couple months that I was here on the job, he came up to the office. He said, follow your heart, be true to who you are, and give everything you have each and every day to help impact these kids, this program. And that's what I try to do, because he did that. He was the example of that. And that's the standard of what all of us have to try to match. Whether you're in coaching, whether you're out of coaching, as you go through this life, he was a tremendous example of how to impact and how to serve.
That is Mike Norvell, Florida State head football coach. More to come from Florida State. They are scheduled to actually practice here in the Jacksonville area over the next few days this week for a couple of days. We'll see if that still takes place. There's obviously multi-day celebration of life for Bobby Bowden coming up later this week in Tallahassee, so we'll continue to pass along some of that information. Joining us now on our Bobby Bowden special here on ESPN 690 is Rick Catlett, former president of the TaxSlayer Gator Bowl, and Rick, of course, knows so many of the coaches and people around college football for all his work in the sport for decades and decades. Rick, the loss of Bobby Bowden, what an impact this man made.
Man, I wish we weren't having this conversation. Probably one of the finest men I've ever met in my life. I was so blessed to be able to host his last game. As you probably remember, we had to fight the ACC to make that happen, and we got it done, and I got to spend a whole week for him. And Jimbo took a back seat and let Bobby be out front, and what an incredible week. And, 22 straight, I was thinking about this earlier, 22 straight ACC meetings. I always had the honor of playing golf with him because we always played a scramble and he wanted to play his own ball. And so he would always ask for me. And after about 3 years, he said, I'm going to play a scramble with you, partner. How's that? So kind of fun stories. He asked Dave Hart to call me about the FSU-Alabama game. He said he wanted to play Alabama before he retired. And then hosting the last game, I always wanted my son to go to the University of Florida, but I wanted him to play football for Bobby Bowden. That's how much I think of the man.
Well said. Rick Catlett with us, former president of the TaxSlayer Gator Bowl. A little bit more about that game because, Rick, as a guy who's been around here since 2008 and, didn't grow up in the glory days of Florida State around here like so many have, and many of you know that live in the area or are Florida State football fans, that game to me is very meaningful for our city, for the legacy of Bobby Bowden, and for Jacksonville to play a bit of a role in that. I mean, it's got to obviously be a special place in your heart when it comes to Bobby Bowden. I mean, to see that scene and for him to go out with a win over West Virginia, of course, where he had ties as well, and for it to take place right in Jacksonville where, we've had so many guests on today, Rick, that have mentioned countless times that Jacksonville is one of his favorite places in the state.
Well, I think he went 7-1 here, so obviously it was a pretty special place for him. I can't tell you enough about how special it was to host him in his last game. We sold the stadium out, still hold the record at the stadium in attendance. I went to Florida State in 70 to 73, and we didn't win too many football games back then. And I maybe have been a Seminole if it hadn't been, if he'd have been there when I was there. But he wanted to play it here. He called me personally. I've got a handwritten note from him after it was over, which is in the middle of my office in my house now, and my prized possession. I've got a lot of other memorabilia, but my prized possession is a letter from Bobby Bowden, handwritten, and I will always cherish him and always remember him. And there's some great stories that you could get into if you had time. The greatest one was when he asked Coach Martin to do a speech for him while he went to Augusta National to play golf. And Coach Martin had already been invited to go play Augusta with him. And he said, yes, sir, I'll do that. So Mike Martin said, I'll go do your speech and I'll pass on Augusta National. Well, Bobby was only kidding. And I happened to walk into the locker room, and there's Coach Bowden and Coach Martin sitting there, and they told me the story. And, think about what a wonderful man that is to make sure that his friend, his fellow coach, got to play Augusta National.
Yeah, that's a great story. Hey, Rick, I'm talking to you, and I love golf, and you love golf, and I'm not sure I'd do that for my best friend.
Well, every time I've ever been invited, they've never said bring a friend. So it just goes to show you, Ben, how much more what a great ambassador he was for college football and for Christianity and his passion for Jesus Christ.
Absolutely. Rick Catlett with us. Let me keep it for just one more moment. You mentioned we really fought for that game in 2009, and for that last game for Bobby Bowden. He texted you and called you and said, hey, we want to play that game there. Can you give us a little bit more behind the scenes? How much of a battle was that? How much did you have to do to get that? How much of a wrestling match? In your world, there's a lot of wrestling matches when it comes to teams that are going to play in your bowl game.
Well, we had a contract, and the ACC was looking at the contract. Well, we had the ACC championship game and had to play Wake Forest. Commissioner Swafford and I agreed to a new contract to allow us to take who we wanted to the last 2 years of the contract. The ACC was not up to speed on the new contract. John and I did it together. And so I had to call him and just tell him, you're looking at the wrong contract, Michael, and you need to look at the right contract. John and I negotiated it a year earlier, and so once we got them on the same page, it was easy. But before that, they wanted to send him to Birmingham, which I guess he went to school in Birmingham. Maybe that would have been all right. But why deprive all the Florida State people from an opportunity to see him coach his last game? And as fate would have it, beat West Virginia, where he coached before. You know the story about him slipping on the ice and deciding to take the Florida State job in West Virginia. And so the rest is history. So it was, I was never in a situation where I was enamored by commissioners and people like that. I always fought for what was right as it related to the bowl games, and I think the bowls have a great future, but let's just honor Bobby today.
Absolutely. Rick Catlett, appreciate your time and your stories. Thanks for taking a few minutes, and be well.
Thank you, Brent. Talk to you soon.
You bet. That's Rick Catlett, former president of TaxSlayer Gator Bowl, of course. Final win in the legendary life of Bobby Bowden happened right here in Jacksonville. You heard Rick say it, 7-1 in Jacksonville. Just thinking of over the guests that we've had today, by the way, with connections to Jacksonville, number one, but roots right here in Jacksonville, from Leon Washington, of course, to someone that we didn't have on, Edgar Bennett and Leroy Butler. Those guys played in Tallahassee for the legendary Bobby Bowden, and the list goes on and on. I mean, Lavernius Coles, we could keep going, especially as of, even later, where they weren't necessarily the glory days of Bobby Bowden's coaching career. Toward the end, still many a Jacksonville football player headed down I-10 west and played for the legendary coach Bobby Bowden. So we appreciate all the guests that came on. The local ties to Jacksonville with Bobby Bowden, obviously, very strong. You can listen to Florida State football all season long, Florida State basketball as well, right here on ESPN 690. And the love and support for Bobby Bowden, the remembrances are certainly not going to stop over the next few hours, days, and beyond. there were several folks that I remember retweeting, at least. I'm going to try to find a couple. Alabama said, rest in peace to a legend. Every school basically said a thank you and a goodbye to Bobby Bowden today on social media or another way. Gators said condolences to Bowden and FSU family. We have lost a remarkable man and coach, R.I.P. Coach Bowden. Clemson football, he was the model. He was such a great example of not losing sight of the main thing. A man of faith, a great husband, a great father. Dabo Swinney on Bobby Bowden. Jacksonville Jaguars, gone, but absolutely impossible to ever forget, they said, upon the passing of Bobby Bowden. And Urban Meyer, who I talked to this morning during our coverage on Fox 30 about Urban Meyer, and he said this on social media. He also said a little bit more after the practice today. He said this on social media. Today we lost a legend. Bobby was a great friend and a mentor to me, and his impact transcended the coaching profession in so many ways. Sending love to Ann and the entire Bowden family. This is what else he said earlier today.
I love Bobby Bowden, and he couldn't be more genuine of a person. Him and Ann, obviously we coached against each other, but that was compared to the time we spent together on those Nike trips, and a dear friend and one of the greatest people I've ever met in my life. So our prayers to that. What a life he lived, though. 91 years of great life. Well, you think about Coach Bowden and Coach Spurrier in that era. All young coaches grew up watching Coach Bowden at Tallahassee and Coach Spurrier at the Swamp, and that changed college football.
Well, not only that, Florida and Florida State, but obviously the great state of Florida and football. Miami Hurricanes certainly part of that when it comes to Florida State. Miami Hurricanes today saying our condolences to the Bowden family and the Florida State football program on the passing of Bobby Bowden, who was instrumental in making the UM-FSU rivalry one of the greatest in college football. Rest in peace, Coach. It absolutely, and I've said this, and I've tried to stay out of the way of most of this during the last 2 hours of our coverage and let the folks that knew Bobby Bowden the best tell the stories and share their stories and remember a great man and a great coach. But, I'm from Rhode Island. I've said that a couple of times, and I say this to folks often. Growing up, outside of this area, whether it was in Nebraska or Washington or you name it, Michigan but in New England, it's a little bit different because there isn't really this big college football presence. And heck, I always say a lot of people are Notre Dame fans because there are a lot of Catholics in Notre Dame. There are a lot of Navy fans in Rhode Island. Newport, Rhode Island's a Navy town. So you had a little bit of that, but certainly not even close to the fever from a college football standpoint as it is in the South and so many other great states across the country. But for me, I remember those Florida State-Miami days. I remember the sidelines. I remember Bobby Bowden. I said it earlier. I remember Keith Jackson calling those games, Brent Musburger calling those games. I mean, that's where the legend of Bobby Bowden started. And all of that for me, and that was because 87 to 2000 in that run, top 5 every single year for 14 straight years, 2 national titles. So many of those 400-plus wins for Bobby Bowden. Just an incredible journey, an incredible run, incredible football life. And as many people on our program here said today, just an incredible life and an incredible man. Big thanks to Casey for jumping in. He's going to actually run the board for the Jumbo Shrimp game coming up here on ESPN 690 in a bit. So many thanks to all the folks, Max Zahn included, by the way, who we didn't get to on the phone, but he helped me contact many of the folks that were close to Bobby Bowden. But we just ran through a bunch of guests. You can go back and listen to all the guests that we had, whether it's on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. We'll probably eventually have this up on the Action Sports Jacks on ESPN 690 podcast, celebrating the life of the great Bobby Bowden. Gene Deckerhoff, we appreciate his time. Verlin Dormany, Greg Jones, Leon Washington, James Coleman, Kevin Sullivan, Dr. Joseph Joyner joined us as well. The great Charlie Ward, Charlie Barnes, Martin Buckley, Rick Catlett along the way as well. And Brian Allen, too, former Lake City Columbia coach, played at Florida State there in the late 90s, early 2000s. So we appreciate all their time and taking a couple minutes on a Sunday afternoon to celebrate the life of Bobby Bowden. Thank you as well. Rest in peace, Bobby Bowden. And his life will be celebrated not just today, all week long, and really forever, a legacy left by the great Bobby Bowden, who passes away at the age of 91 this morning. We'll have more TV coverage in a bit. Action Sports Jax primetime tonight, 10:30 on Fox 30, 11:30 on CBS 47. We'll certainly talk a little bit about the Jags, but the dominating story will be celebrating Bobby Bowden as well. Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp Baseball coming up next. Thanks for hanging out with us here on a Sunday afternoon. And join the show tomorrow at 3 o'clock with Austin Lane, Casey, and myself, 3 p.m. until 6 p.m. on